5 police officers in Connecticut are being charged after a black man was paralyzed in a police van. And for you to understand how brutal this is and how much merit there is to this lawsuit, we have to show you what actually happened. But you need to understand in advance that this is a horrible video we're gonna show you of a person being injured brutally for the rest of their life because of the negligence of cops. So consider yourself warned, but here's the footage.
What happened? What? You fell.
Yes.
What happened? Can you move at all?
I can't move.
What? How your leg is all the way up there?
Understand me, listen, brother.
All right, I can't move you, so I have to hold on. I'm gonna have to go get an ambulance.
Listen, no.
Huh?
Yes, but understand.
Go ahead.
I fall. I cannot move my arms.
All right, do not move. I can see moving your arm.
No.
Okay.
Look at my hand.
All right, hold on.
Help.
Ready?
Get the.
Huh? You ain't cracking. You just drink too much. No, you drink too much.
Okay.
Sit up.
Footage shows Randy Cox, 36-year-old, becoming paralyzed because of what the cops did. Absolutely brutal. It was back on June 19th. He was being driven to a New Haven police station. The cops say that they had to brake hard because they were avoiding a collision, which is an explanation perhaps of the braking, maybe, not an explanation of why Randy Cox wasn't wearing a seatbelt when he was put in. And when you combine that with the fact that they have his hands bound behind his back, there was nothing he could do to stop himself from becoming paralyzed in that way. And then having condescending cops smugly telling him, I see your arm moving, or you're just faking it. You just drank too much. This person's entire life has been changed fundamentally. The rest of his life. And in the exact way that we've seen so many times, people being thrown around in the back of these police vans. And I can't say that in Connecticut they use it in the same way that they seem to in places like Baltimore, where it's just a standard tool in their tool chest to brutalize people, but they clearly didn't care in advance of the injury and afterward. With that cop saying, I have to call an ambulance. No, you see someone injured, you go call the ambulance. You don't talk about it as if it's some sort of inconvenience for you. The inconvenience is being paralyzed for the rest of your life, potentially dying from the injury that you sustained, your entire life being thrown into utter chaos. That's the inconvenience, not having to dial 911. Anyway, I know that it's brutal footage, but Conscious, what did you think about that?
I just seen it as the complete disregard for the law. I feel like he was already being treated like a criminal. It wasn't innocent to proven guilty. I don't think he was able to see, you feel me, a judge or a jury or anything like that. And I know that when it comes to the dialogue in the media, a lot of his injuries are going to be justified because he was quote unquote a criminal that was doing something wrong. So again, I think about the constitutionalists that love to say back the blue, respect the blue and all that there. But when it comes to the regard for the law and how individuals are supposed to see the due process of law, we see you don't have that energy. And the last thing I'll say, listen, if a black mother or a mother of color, or really even if a white mother was to put their child in the back seat and their child was injured, that mother could see charges not only about negligence, but also, you feel me, that's gonna call into question their parenting. So the fact that law enforcement can be negligent and literally just disregard somebody's due process and treat them like a criminal and be like, you a nuisance, now I gotta call, I gotta waste tax dollars on you. Yep. That show you in the many instances the orientation that individuals like that gentleman in that car, the communities that he comes from, their relationship to policing in police.
Yeah. Just the sort of video just makes you just feel sick. Like sometimes, we have periods where the news is more positive, and then sometimes you just see something that reminds you of how terrible some individuals and some organizations are. Well, thankfully, in this case, There are charges, 5 cops being charged with second-degree reckless endangerment and cruelty to persons. All have been on administrative leave since last summer. The police chief in the area of Connecticut says you can make mistakes, but you can't treat people poorly, period. You cannot treat people the way Mr. Cox was treated. Well, I guess we'll see when they actually go to trial. The cops have been processed. They turned themselves into a state police barracks on Monday. Posted $25,000 bond due back in court December 8th. So it's coming soon. Now, obviously, that's just the next step. God only knows how long the entire process will take. But right now, Cox's family has filed a federal lawsuit against the city of New Haven, as well as the cops, alleging negligence, exceeding the speed limit, and failure to have proper restraints in the police van, or from what we could see in the video, literally any restraints of any kind, just bare metal as someone is being thrown around inside of it. Who could have possibly seen it coming? The injuries might happen. By the way, 4 of the officers filed motions last week claiming qualified immunity from the lawsuit, arguing that their actions in the case did not violate any clearly established legal standard. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert in this area. I don't know if they're right. I do know that if they are right and what they did doesn't violate any clearly established legal standard, that violates clearly established moral and ethical standards for how literally anyone should behave. There had better be consequences for this. There had better be, I mean, financial compensation can only go so far in helping Randy Cox and his family and friends to recover from this horrible incident. But at the very least, there has to be consequences for what they did. Any other thoughts, Conscious?
I know from a political standpoint, that show y'all that if you watching this, we need to be digging deeply into what qualified immunity is and recognize that whatever state or whatever city or whatever county you in, how qualified immunity works in your community. Because when we go into the streets and we talking about unarmed people being murdered, or we talking about, you feel me, police using crazy force, we gotta recognize that if they feel like if they can justify what they did being a part of their job, immunity. Think about that.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.